So, Corey, did you complete your action item, 30-minute thought session about how this book, meaning our previous book, the Book of Elon, applies to your life?
I did, Mike. I did. And I'm not going to tell you anything like monumental about that book, other than like I think there's some real good nuggets in there. Like I think there are some really good like think about them and how they apply to different projects or different things that I'm working on nuggets in there. I'm not going to wholeheartedly kind of embrace most any of Musk's like high level philosophies, but like there are some nuggets in there. What it really made me think of is kind of a higher level meta thing about like, okay, I've got all these book notes now, and like your world puts them into the mind maps, and then like are you still doing the summaries and posting those to YouTube?
I'm working on them.
Okay.
So, yes, I'm a little bit behind for secret reasons, which will be revealed by the end of the month.
Okay, cool. So that was not a tease on purpose. That was awesome. But that was not a tease on purpose. So it got me thinking about, okay, you and I have done, quite a few books at this point, 70 maybe. We're getting in close to 70 books, you and I, just us, much less the 180 something that were before I joined the show. And I'm starting to think about like, okay, I want to start making some bigger connections in all of this stuff that I've said I thought was at least somewhat important coming out of the book. And I'm trying to think about how do I use AI to do that? How do I use a tool to help me make those extractions, or do I not intentionally? And is it worth the time to go back in and try to pull some of those nuggets out of there? And I don't know the answer to it. Like I don't know, but that's what came out of that 30-minute session. It was like, hold on, there are things inside of all these notes that you've taken, and there are things inside of these highlights. And what I'm also debating there, and I know I'm kind of talking in circles right now, but it's like, is that too static? Like, does it need to be more of a dynamic thing? Whereas, like, as my life changes, I'll get different things out of the insights that I grabbed out of those books. And I don't know the answer to that right now, but it's like there almost needs to be. I need to have like a process, like a review process for the notes that come out of the book. You know what I mean? But it's like
Yeah.
it seems daunting when I think about 70 books. So I can only imagine it seems daunting when you think about 200 250. So I don't know what to
Yeah.
do with
So
that.
on that note, like this is, I think, the argument that best supports my belief that everybody needs to be creative and you need to create on a regular schedule. Because what that does for me is it forces my brain to do the creative work of connecting those dots. And it's sort of like going to the gym. The more that you do it, the stronger the muscle
Mm-hmm.
gets.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't worry at all about surfacing particular notes that I have taken from previous books that I have read. If it surfaces, great, because I understand enough about the creator process that that's what your brain is trying to do anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's specific ways that I can leverage those connections between my notes, I'll make those so I can do it in the future, kind of like the cross-reference library stuff that I've done with my Bible verses and things in Obsidian.
Mm-hmm.
But to force yourself to go back and try to wring something out of those notes, I feel like I have no interest in doing that. And I feel like it would be a little bit of a difficult exercise. You probably could do it. You probably could get something out of it, but that juice just isn't worth the squeeze to me.
Yeah, I think my default would be to throw it to an AI and see what it'll do for me and see what I think about that. But then I know that as soon as I do that, there's something that like rubs me the wrong way about that. It's like, but
Yeah.
that's not me gaining those insights. That's me asking it to summarize the things that I've included in there or something. And I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, don't let it make the connections for you. And yeah, it could summarize things if all you want is the summary, but I feel like that's not really what you're after. And I would just let that stuff organically bubble up. Give yourself some sort of regular output for connecting those dots, and then just trust the process. The
Yeah.
output is the output. You don't have to judge it, try to make it better, etc. Just is what it is.
Yep. But that's the outcome of my follow up. So it's good. It was worth it, but nothing major came out of it.
All right. I don't think we have anything else to announce here.
Mm-mm.
So I guess we talk about today's book then, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So today's book is How to Try Again by Steve Kamb. And before I get into how this book got on my radar, I'll ask, have you ever heard of Steve Kamb before or his
Never, but
brand Nerd Fitness?
yeah, I had Nerd Fitness had like popped through at some point because it was from like the early 2000s, 2010-ish, right?
Yep.
So it's like it somewhere I had seen that, but it was like a fly in, fly out thing. Like I wasn't part of the community. I never knew anything about it. I couldn't have told you that Steve Kamb was the guy who created it. I've just heard the Nerd Fitness thing before at some point.
Yeah, I feel like Nerd Fitness is probably something past Cory would have really enjoyed,
Hmm.
or maybe even now. I don't know. I'm not into Nerd Fitness at all, but just hearing him talk about it,
Yeah.
couldn't help but think that pre, what do you call it, the F3 group that you're a part of, and the CrossFit type of stuff. Before that got big, I could totally see you doing something
Yep.
like that.
Oh, I agree.
Here.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so I was familiar with Steve Kamb from Nerd Fitness back when I was working with Asian Efficiency. His name showed up. He probably was on the productivity show when I was editing it and Zach was hosting it. So I knew who he was. I had never talked to him though. And then I bumped into him outside of Craft and Commerce. He came to the conference with a t-shirt, had the cover of the book on it with an arrow, said, "I wrote this." Was walking around talking to people the whole conference. So right away when I saw that, I'm like, props to you, author guy, promoting your book in a unique and interesting way.
Yep.
I recognized the name once I saw it. I heard other people saying good things about it. And when I happened to bump into Steve and we're doing the small talk thing, mentioned the podcasts, got a Bookworm podcast where we review books. I would love to take a look at it. He's like, okay, well, I gave Nathan a copy to give to everybody at the conference, so it's in your it's in your bag.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yep. And then obviously he was there signing copies and things, doing the whole promotional tour at this point. This is an interesting book because I think he said something like 13 years in the making. He got a book deal when Nerd Fitness was blowing up. Life lifed him, and then he ended up writing a very different book, which is the one that we have here today. Interesting layout too. There's an introduction, there's a first chapter, then there are two parts.
Yep.
Part 1 is Let's Make a Pact. There's 4 parts in that, one for each of the letters, and then part 2 is How to Use Pacts in Our Lives. That is chapters 6 through 10. Yep, there we go. Look, scrolling through my mind map here. Then there's a conclusion and an epilogue. So I think we'll do this chapter by chapter, but it does break down into those separate parts with that one weird chapter at the beginning that doesn't fit inside of anything.
Well,
so.
and what's really funny is you think about it, and he get to the end of the book, and he talks to you about, well, I couldn't figure out how to organize the book. I couldn't figure out how to structure the book. And it's like, yes, correct. Like you couldn't figure it out, and there's that one weird chapter at the beginning, and then we go into like somewhat of a reasonable organization. So yeah, he struggled with that. I mean, that seems to be a problem, but I think it turned out okay. I don't think it came across as overly, unique or different or weird.
Yeah, I don't mind it, other than you're messing up my outlines, Steve.
Come on, Steve.
I gotta manually adjust all of these headers when I export this to Markdown.
Yep.
The book is basically about the topic of failure and trying again, hence the name. Not a typical topic, I would say, for either productivity or business, the types of books that we would typically read, but also very important. I feel like we've come across anecdotes in other books about the importance of failure and learning from your failures. I mean, even in the last book that we read, Elon's talking about the failed launches are all part of the process. But I think this is the first book I've ever seen that's really just all about making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're nodding your head. You haven't seen anything like this before either?
No, and he owns it too, right? Like what's interesting to me about the start of this book is it's semi-autobiographical, where he's telling you about like the way all this came to be through his experiences, but then he also has a framework, and he also wants you to think about this framework. So it was almost as you're reading it, and I don't remember if he says it this directly or not, but it's almost as you're reading it, he was like, I had to figure out a way to get through this. This book is the result of me figuring out a way to get through this. But no, I've not seen many other books combine those two things, or talking about, it's not just failure, right? Because he does talk about failure there, but it's more a matter of like, don't stop at the failure, go.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do after that happens? When it happens, what do you do? And I've not seen any other books like that, or I've not read any other books like that.
All right. Well, let's get into it. The first chapter here is the introduction. This is actually titled "Starting at the End," and this is where he tells a little bit of his story and the context for this book. Mentions that he had a relationship that ended and a company that fell apart 2 weeks after signing the book deal. And I can't think of worse timing for that. Definitely you feel for him when he shares that. But he, like you said, he owns it. And the net result of that, I think, is that it's very encouraging. It's sort of like, if I went through this and was able to do it, then you can do it too. He mentions that this book is for people who don't have it all together. And there's a quote that I really like in this introduction. It says, rather than help people succeed with more discipline, we need to help them fail with more compassion. I love that phrase. Curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the nature or the orientation, that's the way I'm going to say it, of the book is so different than other books in this area, where you think about like, oh, you just need to be more disciplined. You just need to hustle more. You need to go do it. You need to have a better plan. You need to organize better, whatever it is. And his whole orientation is, when you get smacked in the face, right? How do you pick yourself back up and keep going? And how are you kind to yourself? How do you have compassion to yourself? And like, it's just a very different perspective on it. Now, I don't love every aspect of that perspective, but I appreciate the nuanced difference in this book than in most of the other books that you read in this area. I'm going to turn a question back on you. He says in here, the book is for the rest of us burned out humans who are frustrated they can't get it together. They think they should exercise more, they should eat better, they should be more productive. There were multiple times in this book where I was like, Steve, stop shining the spotlight on me. Like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I know that's your goal here, but like, come on, like, can you just not blind me with the spotlight here? Because like, the number of times I've said that, like, come on, Cory, like, get it together. Like, come on, Cory, like, don't be so lazy. You should exercise. You should eat better. You should be more productive. It's like, gosh, you're hitting all the things that at times in my life I've called out on my own. So I think if it hasn't found a strong audience, I could very easily see this book finding a strong audience and a committed audience that's willing to word of mouth share this in a bunch of different places.
All right. So you mentioned you had a question for me in there. Was it basically just, do I ever feel that way?
Did you feel called out? Like that? Sorry, I didn't get to the question. Like, did you feel called out in the times he was putting the spotlight on you as well?
Yes and no. So this is interesting timing for me reading this, because I've been thinking through a lot of this stuff the last couple of weeks in particular. I wrote a newsletter actually that I published today as we record this. I'll put the link to it in the show notes. But it was essentially about some coaching that I had done with Daryl Vesterfelt after attending Gabby Beckford's session at Craft and Commerce. So Gabby Beckford, why do I have such a hard time with that name? Gave a talk, and she talked about this concept, delusional confidence. She asked this question, like, if you could change the rule book, what would you change? And it really just got me thinking about, what are the limiting beliefs that I have, the things that I've just accepted. This is part of the process. And one of those, I think, is what you were just describing. I am a messed up individual who can't just seem to get it together and do the stuff that I should do.
Yep.
And I've been thinking a lot about that in terms of my creator business, and had some coaching with Daryl, and he was walking me through this exercise. The details are in this article if you want to go deeper, but essentially he did two things. First, he asked, you 15 years ago, what would they think about your situation right now? And then go out 15 years into the future. So older you, how would they think about your situation right now? So younger you is like, oh, that's awesome. We get to make YouTube videos for a living. Sweet. Sign me up. And then the older you is like, whatever it is you're dealing with right now, it's going to be okay. It's not that big a deal. Feels like the world is ending, but it really isn't. So I've been struggling with some of that stuff more recently. Daryl was talking to me about this launch that I'm getting ready to do. I'll share more about that when it's ready. But the general premise of it is I want to help people use AI to amplify their human voice and taste. And I'm fascinated by that topic. I don't think AI is a switch. A lot of people view it as like push button done, SEO blog post go. Don't ever let it think for you. I'm kind of in the middle. And I'm fascinated by that whole topic, but there's a whole lot of imposter syndrome that I deal with around that. So Daryl was kind of helping me unpack that. And the imposter syndrome is really just a sign that you have something to share here. And then he had me think 6 months into the future, this launch that you've got is going to be the best launch you ever had. What is true 6 months from now about this launch? And as I got into the details of that exercise, obviously you're getting excited about it. Oh man, this is going to be amazing. He's like, okay, now the place that you're at right now, that's the place that you have to stay in as you work towards that launch. Because if you get in your own head and you start freaking out about stuff, you create very differently out of that place of fear than you do when you are creating out of a place of abundance. And I can totally see that. I can totally see that in myself, where it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm so nervous about things breaking that they break. Or they don't go as well as I want them to go. So I've had that in the back of my mind as I'm going through all this stuff too. What that did for me, as we're talking about the whole thing about failure, is I think it helped me realize that it's really not that big a deal, and I have permission to just go try things. Lean into the curiosity. It's not all gonna work, but it doesn't have to work. So I was kind of moving this direction anyways, I guess.
Good.
Is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, good. I mean, he also gets into, I don't remember if he actually tells us what PACT stands for, but he tells us that he's going to tell us about a framework here in this chapter. And then he's really kind of just setting the stage of basically stuff's going to get in the way, and let's talk about how to handle that stuff. So that's really what I took away from this introductory chapter of like, let's look at where we are right now, and you're probably there too. So I thought it was a good intro.
It's a great intro. Yeah, I don't think he really got into what PACT is, although if you look at the table of contents, you can totally see it.
Yep.
So, the next chapter, though, the first official chapter, this is the one that stands alone. It's lonely. It doesn't have a part. The unexpected benefits of failure. I get why this one doesn't really fit anywhere else. And I'm really glad that this chapter is in here.
Me too.
I feel like this is a very important first chapter. This is the first chapter you have to have, I feel like, in this book.
Yep, I agree. I agree. The quote in here, the Rick Hansen quote about Buddha's brain. Did you highlight that?
I don't remember that. No. Okay.
Our brain is like Velcro for negative experiences, but Teflon for positive ones. I was like, oh my goodness. And this is where I said like, oh my goodness, it's such a spotlight. Like, yeah, like I remember all the negative things, and I just easily let the positive ones just kind of float away. And this happens with me, as a teacher. You get student reviews at the end of the class, and man, oh man, the one negative one, you wore a funny shirt on the third day of class, ha 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 ha, and like that's the one that sticks in your brain, not the one that's like, man, you've impacted my life, and it was such a good class and all that stuff. Like those just fly out the window.
I did jot that down. I didn't jot down the source of that, but yeah, our brain is like Velcro for negative, Teflon for the positive.
Yep.
And it is totally true. I had an experience this week, which again, I was kind of already thinking about this stuff in a little bit different light. I was primed for this book, I guess is the best way to put it. But even last week, I had this situation where I got this really nasty email from someone who signed up for my email list. And it was basically, you're all a bunch of snake oil salesmen, you people making money off of this free app Obsidian. And I was like, I don't normally reply. I replied to this one. I was like, agree to disagree. I'll go ahead and unsubscribe you from my list.
Yeah. That's tough.
But I noticed though, like so I mentioned I don't normally reply, and I'm actually pretty proud of the reply that I had, because I stood up for myself, which I felt like in the moment that was something I needed to do. Most of the time when I get emails like that, I ignore them, but this is absolutely true. By replying and saying, I don't see it that way, I guess let's just go our separate ways. I felt like that was me because I wasn't coming at him, but I was acknowledging like, this is not a match.
Yeah.
And it allowed me, it was interesting because I think it allowed me to sort of turn the page a little bit and not think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, Cory, the people who are like that, they have something in common, and it makes me uncomfortable. Most of the people who are like that, because that's the first time I've heard that argument. They are people who have downloaded my Bible resources.
Oh, really?
Yep. Which is why, like, I talk about my faith often. I think it's a very important part of who I am and my approach to productivity. My values are they guide everything that I do.
Yeah.
But I don't want to make a faith-based anything anymore because I've had enough people like that where it's just like, you should give this to me for free. And I'm like, well, I would be broke and living in a van down by the river if I did that.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah, there's a difference between those two things. Yes.
Yeah, and that's not everybody, obviously, but there's definitely have something in common.
That's a bummer, man. Like that's such a bummer, and I agree. Like those things would bother me too. But I see what you're saying in terms of it allows you to almost like close out and be like, okay, I said my piece. I was respectful. I was kind, but at the same time, I stood up for myself and just call it a day and be like, I can't change you, but at least I gave myself a fair shot, kind of a thing.
Don't waste your time worrying about what people you're never going to make happy think about you.
Exactly.
Go make other people happy. Provide the transformation that you can with the people who actually want it.
Yep.
And I've been able to do that on a higher level since I started implementing some of the stuff that I was going through in that growth intensive. So I feel like that stuff that I've been doing, man, I can't speak highly enough about this. I'm going to put the link to the growth intensive in the show notes if people are interested in it. That's the 2-day thing I did with Daryl Westervelt and Cory Wilkes. I joined the program that they have that they pitched at the end of that, and it's been phenomenal. It is not cheap, but it's not an overstatement to say that has been life-changing for me.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know.
There are a couple things in this chapter, though, that I did want to talk about. The first is the Museum of Failure. Have you heard of this before?
I've not, but it sounds fascinating. Like it sounds like something that I would want to go check out and see what this is all about.
Yeah, so my understanding is that this actually moves to different locations.
Cool.
But it's been around for a while, and it has a big collection of things that were a quote-unquote failure. So you'll see things in there, like one of the examples he mentioned was Apple's Pippin, which is like a video game system that they made back in the day. Kodak and the first digital camera, which they didn't release because they didn't want to cannibalize their film business. All sorts of stuff that, like, the Virtual Boy, that was one. I was going to ask you if you remember that. You're of a certain age.
No, I don't remember I don't remember the Virtual Boy at all. No.
I remember trying this at like a Blockbuster Video. It was this.
I remember that.
It was like an Apple Vision Pro thing that you put on, but imagine like big red and black pixels. And after 2 minutes, as like a 12-year-old or something, I was like, "This is making me sick. I can't stand this."
Oh man.
It was horrible. That's in there. But the thing that I found the most fascinating from the Museum of Failure was the wall of failure at the end with the Post-it notes. And Beautiful. They had a picture of one in particular. It's just because they don't have to all be these huge colossal failures. One was like, I farted in yoga.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The one that I thought about when I was reading that is like, do you remember green and purple ketchup?
No, that sounds disgusting.
Okay. So it was a complete mind bend because it's like, if you're from Pittsburgh, which, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Heinz ketchup is everything. I mean, you put it on almost anything, right? And it's red, and it's Heinz ketchup, and it's Heinz 57, and all this stuff. And then they made purple and green, and I remember eating a hot dog with green ketchup on it, going, "Nope, can't do it." Like it tasted exactly like normal tomato ketchup, but it was just weird. You just couldn't do it. It was the strangest thing, and complete flop. Like it absolutely flopped. It was gone in months. I don't know how long it was there, but it was gone in months. But that's what like popped into my head when I thought about failure, Museum of Failure.
Good. There was a definition of failure in here, which I thought was interesting. So in 1828, failure was defined as a breaking or becoming insolvent, a thing that happened. And that was Noah Webster from Webster's Dictionary. He died in 1843, and in 1857, there was a revision where failure was redefined to include some weakness in man's character, disposition, or habit, and that's when it became a character flaw and a moral shortcoming. I thought that was an interesting observation.
What do you think? He makes a statement in here. Failure is the most common of all human experiences. Do you think that's true? Like I thought about this and I was like, I mean, you think about it, you start doing it as a baby, right? Like, okay, you're trying to walk. And what do? You fail and you fail and you fail and you fail and you fail. And eventually you learn how to walk, right? Like you're trying to talk and you fail and you fail and you fail and you fail. And I think about like, does that break anywhere? And I didn't run like the entire life scenario out, but like grades in school, you fail and you fail and you fail until you get it right, right? Your job, you fail and you fail and you fail until you find it or don't, right? Like, I mean, it's really like a really accurate statement that like failure might be one of the most common things we experience as humans. And I just think that's a wild thing to think about, is most of life is failure.
It is a wild thing to think about. I hadn't really thought about it until you just brought it up. I think my gut says that that's probably true.
Yeah.
I don't have any evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
You know, there's that meme, all he does is win, but that's not real.
That's not real. Yeah. Yeah, that's not real.
All right. Ready to go into part one?
Yep. Let's make a pact.
All right. So part one is let's make a pact. But I want to break this down chapter by chapter. So we'll have individual chapters in the podcast episodes, so you can jump between these. The first one here, chapter 2, is P is for pause. I do have to call out here at the beginning, I don't like the word pact here. I'm going to see if you can guess why that is.
No, I don't really know. I'm not sure why you would have a rub with that. Yeah.
Well, when I hear the word pact, I instantly think of Tiny Experiments by Anne Laure LeCunff.
Okay.
That book I absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm.
And she has her definition of pact there. So I had trouble reconciling that in my brain. Like two different definitions for this same acronym was not working for me.
Yeah, I got it. That did not rub me the same way at all. So that's
okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right. So chapter 2, P is for pause. This is really about at the beginning, just taking a break. He had a statement in here. Sometimes the best thing to do is to not make things worse. I thought that was pretty brilliant. The rest of the chapter is kind of along those lines. One thing I appreciate about these chapters, by the way, is the key insights at the end. There's like a couple of bullets on the last page of the chapter that kind of summarize everything, but that's basically what this is about. So when you feel like something's not working, don't just push harder, which I think is maybe the natural tendency for go-getters, people who are very driven, maybe high achievers. Like, I'm going to make this work. Don't do that, because you may just end up going further down the wrong path.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, I try to tell my students all the time when we do design projects in engineering is, okay, you can create the absolute best design in the world that doesn't solve the problem that the customer actually needs. And he gets into a similar thing here, is like, don't waste your time and don't waste your energy on the wrong activity. And this is why you and I have talked about this at length, and it's a big part of your life theme stuff and all of that. If we're throwing good energy at the wrong thing, there's never going to be what we need out of that. Like, we're never going to get what we need out of that, or we're never going to make the progress that we want to see here. And I love that he brings that back up, that it's basically, if we're going in the right compass direction, as you and I will talk about this, if we're going in the right compass direction and we try and we fail, we at least moved in the right direction, even though it didn't go right. If we're going in the wrong direction, if we succeed, that's not good. Like that's a problem. Like we actually haven't helped ourselves at all by being successful in the wrong direction. And I just like that framing of it. Trying harder in the wrong thing is not success. So really pause, take that stop and think about, am I even doing the thing that I should be doing? The other one that comes out of this that I thought was really, really good is he starts talking about he quotes Nasib Taleb from Anti-Fragile. Chess grandmasters usually win by not losing. People become rich by not going bust. And if you think about that, there's a lot of truth in, hey, the best offense is a good defense. Like this has been said a bunch of different ways and a bunch of different times, and not getting in our own way can a lot of times lead us to success. Investing smart and not trying to get the huge win can be very successful. So it's like, I think the fundamental principles he has here in this first P, this pause section are really strong.
Agree. I think the fundamental principles are actually pretty solid throughout this this whole thing. Anything else before we go to the next one?
No, let's go.
Okay. So the next one is chapter 3. A is for accept. And this is basically encouraging us to accept the situation. Acceptance is not an admission of failure, he talks about. Things will never go back to normal. There is no normal. And this really got me thinking about the whole creative process and my creator business, because I was actually, I don't know where it came from, but I was wrestling with this question as I was reading this. It's like, what if things never actually got smoother? What if this was just what it is? Would I still choose to do this? Because when I was reading this chapter, I totally could see how the natural human tendency maybe, is to think, well, once I do this thing, then it's going to be easier. I had one of those moments recently, Cory, because for a long time, I'm talking to my parents about what I'm doing with my business and trying to explain how it all works. I'm like, well, once I get to 10,000 email subscribers, like that's one of those milestones. Things will get so much easier then. I just went over 10,000 email subscribers not too long ago.
Did magic happen? Did sparks fly?
No unicorn showed up and gave me a great big bag of money like I thought was going to happen.
Daggone it.
Still struggling. But at the time when it happened, I was already wrestling with this, and I wasn't disappointed by it. Like I kind of think I would have been if it had been a different scenario, if I had been in a different headspace, I guess. So I think this is a really powerful idea. I also don't really love the framing, like A is for accept. I just have to accept this. That's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
I can't stand this principle. That doesn't mean it's not right. Like, I'm not telling you that I think he's wrong. I hate every second of this, because I think there's a lot of truth to the fact that at times I don't have to like it and I can't control it, but that's the way it is. Like, that's just the way it's going to be.
right.
And I push up against that, right? Like, and it's like banging your head off the brick wall. No matter how hard you bang your head off the brick wall, it doesn't change the fact that this is real, and doesn't change the fact that this is the way it is. Now, where I struggle with here, and like where I got really kind of in my own head as I'm reading this, is like, well, okay, sure, acceptance is good, but like acceptance can also just mean like passivity, where like I'm not going to try anymore. And I don't think that's what he's saying at all. But
Nope.
I think that's we have to be careful we don't slippery slope that down to like acceptance means giving up or apathy or not trying anymore. And it's basically just allowing ourselves to acknowledge the reality of the situation and understand that he talks about predictability a lot in here. He calls out a Blaise Pascal quote that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And it's like, yeah, like we aren't willing to accept the way reality is and analyze and observe that situation. We always want to go and do and try to like fix the thing. Well, maybe we should try to go around the thing. Like maybe we should try to go over the thing, not try to plow our way through it. And it's like this section really messed with my brain a lot in a good way, like in a positive way, because I kind of didn't like it. I kind of was uncomfortable with it.
Well, if you stop here, it definitely is
Yeah,
uncomfortable because like you were just saying, if you just take this in isolation, just accept it, don't try. That's not what he's saying. The last
exactly.
part of pact is to try.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I liked the efficiency trap in here. This isn't an original idea. This actually comes from 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman. But this is pretty great the way that this is this is worded. I think the more efficient I become, the more things end up on my plate that need to be efficiently dealt with. So you create this hamster wheel that just keeps spinning faster, and you got to go faster to keep up with it. Otherwise, you'll fall on your face. And I think that is a great description of what typically happens.
Absolutely.
I think it's inevitable. That's probably one of the reasons that we fail so much is we bite off more than we can chew. And then when it all comes crashing down, I guess the big takeaway is I'm wrestling through, like, what do I do with this sort of stuff? Like, oh, well, that was too much. Let's not do that again. Instead of like, the world has ended because I couldn't keep up.
This is why I think sabbaticals are so valuable, right? Like, I know sabbaticals give you the time to process. They also give you time to stop and to like say, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And this is a natural break point. And I think like we run the risk of, if we don't plan in periods where we can, I don't want to say like get an out clause or have like an out in there, we potentially get ourselves on that hamster wheel. And next thing you know, we don't know how to get off of it, or we're stuck on it, and we can't get off it. And I think sabbaticals are really good for that. There's probably other methods that are good for that as well. The thing that I'll call out here, because we're getting into the meat of the book, Steve, the author, is very well read. He, like, who he quotes and how he quotes them, that's both popular and like old school philosophical stuff. Like, there's a good mixture here. They also don't feel, at least from my perspective, they didn't feel forced. It wasn't like he was just quoting people just to quote people and just throw random stuff in there. The jokes, I think he was just trying to figure out ways to inject jokes into the book, because I think that's his personality. And like the shirt you have where it points to I'm the author, like, he seems like that's just who he is through and through. But I didn't feel that way with the quotes. Like, some of the books you read and you're like, oh, okay, like, that quote, like, you were just quote farming. Like, you just went out and did a Google search. Like, I need a good quote here. I thought his quotes were really smooth and really well done and added value.
I 100% agree. Ready to go to the next one?
Let's change.
Okay. C is for change. This is chapter 4. There's some really cool stuff in this chapter. I love the beginning story about the caterpillar going into a chrysalis. I actually use this as a object lesson. I opened up service at church last night and talked about this a little bit.
Yep.
The big idea there, the reason that it triggered it for me was there's this word transformation, which in the original Greek is metamorpho. It's really the root of metamorphosis. And so if you're thinking about going through a transformation, that sounds cool. Who doesn't want to become a butterfly when they're a caterpillar? Well, if you have to release enzymes that literally eat your body and break it down, and then you have to put it all back together, that's not as glamorous.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, I looked it up because I was curious how much of a caterpillar's life it spends in that chrysalis. And depends on the species, obviously, but it's like 15 to 20% of its entire lifetime is spent in that process.
Wow.
So we want the change. We want it instantly. It's not how it works.
It's not how it works at all. No, I like here because he pulls into my world of the Toyota production system and the 5 whys, and I'm like, oh, he's speaking my language, right? Like, this is what I mean by, like, he's pretty well read in terms of the fact he's talking about popular stuff, and then he randomly gets into Toyota production 5 whys, and and it's like, whoa, like, where'd you come from with that one? But like, I like this principle where we think about the fact that, like, we're under no obligation. He quotes it to attributes it to Alan Watts. We're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. And while I think you can take that too far, and you can constantly be like changing, and you can constantly be adjusting, and like basically have no anchor and have no mooring. But I think we tend, as humans, to veer the other way, where we say like, oh, well, once we started this thing, now I have to finish it, and I have to go through, and I have to commit my entire life to it, and I have to. And I think that's part of the way maybe our generation was brought up. Whereas, like, no, we really don't. Now, we need to have like a decent plan, and we need to like think it through and not be irrational and just all over the place. But at the same time, like, there's no reason I can't adjust what I said I was going to do 5 years ago or 6 months ago if I'm doing it for the right reasons that are aligned and they're pointing in my compass direction and they make sense. So I really like that principle because I think it's not the way we think naturally as humans, and I think he's hit the nail on the head in terms of that.
Agreed. I also really like the bad metrics leading to
Yeah.
bad outcomes.
Yep.
I mean, I totally recognize this as a recovering integrator.
Yep.
You get what you emphasize, like what gets measured. That's what people will do. He had some pretty extreme examples and stories in the book, but I think it's so I like those stories. On the one hand, they definitely drive home the point that he's making. But the thing I would add to this, I guess, is that it is very easy to pick a metric that you think is in alignment with the thing that you really want to do and find out that it is not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
picking the metrics, I feel like it's one of the most important things you can do, not just at an organizational level, but if you're trying to affect any sort of change. What are you think quite a bit about what are you optimizing for?
Yeah. I know this isn't the first time we've heard about, you mentioned Anne-Laure Lecumpf in her Tiny Experiments book, but he then talks in here about like actually don't pick a goal, conduct an experiment and test for the right variables and things. And I liked his framing. Like I thought he did a good job. By no means is it the experiments book about like how to conduct these experiments, but that wasn't what he was trying to get after. He was trying to say, hey, before you sell out and commit to the wrong thing, let's just test it. Like, let's see how this goes. What do I want to measure? What's the experiment that allows me to measure that thing? And let's run that. And this is where I think if you attach this to Tiny Experiments, man, this change section gets really, really strong in here.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting point because I want to write a book. And one of the things that I want to do when I write a book is I don't want it to have to rely on other books.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how to do that. I remember when I was at Craft and Commerce and I was in the mastermind with James Clear, he talked a little bit about his process for writing Atomic Habits. And he, at one point, had the note cards for the individual chapters and he laid them all out on the floor in front of him. And he went over to the bookshelf and he pulled the books off of the bookshelf that he wanted to make obsolete by what he wrote in those chapters. What you were just describing, that's where my brain went too. I don't remember if he calls out Anne-Laure's book or not.
I don't think he does.
Just the terminology that's being used there, it's a direct connection.
Mm-hmm.
So when I encounter that as a reader, I feel like, I don't know how to describe this. It's almost like you're giving me homework to go read the original source for this so I can fully understand this paragraph or page or whatever you're trying to explain. I have no idea what the remedy is for that, but I am determined to figure it out before I write my book. Because I want whatever someone were to pick up and read, I want them to feel like, yeah, maybe I'm borrowing ideas from other people and I'm absolutely going to cite those sources. But I want them to feel like they can grok the entirety of the argument that I am making simply from what I am presenting to them in that particular chapter.
Yeah. And I think this is where just being cognizant of that and trying hard to do that, plus telling your reviewers, your early readers, this is what I'm trying to do. Was I successful? And then letting them feed back into that and say, hey, I don't get what you want me to get out of this section. You need to bolster that. You need to make it bigger, or make it better, or whatever it might be. I think that's where you rely on them a lot too.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. The last chapter in the first part here is chapter 5. T is for try. And this is where we're going to try stuff. We have to start somewhere. The scariest thing is starting with nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the description of the quote here about Winston Churchill. I don't know, I forget who exactly was saying this about Winston Churchill, but he wanted to start painting, and he was having so much trouble getting started because he didn't want to mess up the canvas. And then this coach, whatever, comes in and just starts like throwing paint against the canvas, describing it's like a violent interaction, and the canvas is just sitting there taking it, right? And it mentions in this particular book, the quote is, he was so afraid of making a mistake that he couldn't get himself to put the paintbrush on the canvas. And I have been there.
Yep.
Not with a canvas, not with paints, but yeah, totally concerned about saying the wrong thing, or I don't know, just whatever I'm making not being very good. That was the heart of one of the fears that was unearthed for me when I was in the growth intensive, that fear of ridicule. And it's hard. Like, I see it, I understand it, and it still is something that I have to battle against every time I try to make something.
Yeah.
Even a podcast like this, where I'm just talking to a friend about a book. The fact that this is being released to the internet on an internal level makes me really nervous.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I've done thousands of podcast episodes at this point. Like,
you're exponentially better at this than I am. So, I mean, listen, if anybody's going to make a fool of themselves, it's me. So,
yeah. But yeah, anything worth doing is probably worth doing poorly at the start, but your perfectionism doesn't want you to start poorly, so you don't do anything. I don't know. I mean, this is something that is very obvious, and something like, oh yeah, obviously I need to put something out there. But the way that he describes it, I feel hits the perfect balance between new perspective and also just your buddy Steve is encouraging you because, hey, I've messed up worse than you have, so just go do it. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, the one that stuck with me, I'm not a very big video gamer. Like, I don't mind him. I like him. But he talks about playing Dark Souls, and basically it's not even about the game. It's about the process of it. I mean, you pick up a video game and nobody expects to be great at it when you first pick it up. Like, you pick it up and what do? You play and then you die or you lose the game or whatever it is. And then what do? You respawn and you restart, and you just do that over and over and over and over again until you get good enough, or you learn enough of the game mechanics, or you do whatever you're going to do until you like make it through, or you've just committed a bunch of hours to something and you've learned a ton of things about the game, and you've learned a ton of things about playing the game. And it's like, why can't I do that in other aspects of my life? It makes so much sense to me when I think about it from a video game standpoint, because what's the point of the game? The point of the game is to play the game. Like, eventually I'm going to want to win the game. I'm going to want to progress and gain all the coins or do all the things, right? But I'm here to play the game. Like, that's what I'm here to do. But I don't translate that to other aspects of my life. Like, when I think about like a work project, what's the point of it? It's not to do the project. It's to achieve the goal at the end of the project. And it's like, why don't I allow myself to focus on, as cliche as it's going to sound, the journey and not the end, right? Like, why don't I allow myself to just say, hey, this is going to be fun. We're going to do a thing, and like, we're just going to do it until we get it right, and we're just going to do it. But I also think that and I'm going to get very educational on us, I think we beat this out of people in school, right? Like, we don't tell them like the process is what we're here for. We tell them getting the grade is what we're here for. Finishing the assignment is what we're here for. You're going to do it, like, and I think we harm ourselves from this trying and trying and trying because we're so focused on doing it right or whatever it might be. And like, again, I've said this 4 times now. I'm going to say it 5 more times. I just think he hits a really good principle here. And if he had to go through all the crud he had to go through, like, my heart breaks for him, because it does not sound like he had a very fun experience there for multiple years of his life. But like, man, he turned lemons into lemonade in terms of putting it into this book. So I'm a big fan of what he's doing.
Me too. All right, go to part 2.
Part 2.
All right, so part 2 is how to use packs in our lives. And the first chapter here is chapter 6, how to pick the next thing to try. I really like the perspective of this chapter. There's no single right way to do things. He mentions a couple different examples of people and their writing processes. I've been thinking a lot about this too, as it pertains to AI and the writing process, the creative process. And again, referencing the newsletter that I wrote this week, there was a quote that I shared from The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, because that's the thing that comes to mind is the war of art. Writing is hard. And the rule that I wanted to change, going back to that Gabby Beckford thing, was what if because she mentioned this phrase, the suffering is optional. I was like, what if the suffering of writing was optional? You know, and not that you're going to completely remove the work from the creative process, but there are so many people who write so many different ways. There's the one guy who goes to his island and types on a gold-plated typewriter every day. There's the woman, I forget her name, where she stole away for 5 minutes here and there and wrote little slips of paper and then compiled them together into something like 60 books. Like it's different for every single person, and there's always going to be resistance in the process. And I'm not saying that you need to completely remove the resistance in order to create, but what if you just had a little bit of help every time you sat down to get going?
Yep.
And yeah, that's the whole idea behind that cohort, is like figuring out where to intentionally interject AI into the process, so you remove friction in the right places, but you add it in other places so it keeps you on the rails. Yep. I think that's such a powerful idea. So I mean, really, like, just pick something, try it. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. If it worked for somebody else and it doesn't work out for you, it's still okay. Yep. He encourages us not to chase a strategy that delivers optimal results. Pick one you can follow pretty consistently most of the time for a long time. I think that's maybe the best advice in the entire book.
Pretty consistent most of the time, long time. I was just like, wow, like that's a great phrase.
Yep.
Yeah, great phrase. I mean, one of the things that comes out of here is this idea of optimal, and everybody's going to sell you this optimal strategy and the way you should do the thing, and it just might not hit with you. Like, it really might not hit with you. And then he builds that foundation through thinking about all of the things you bring to the table that are different than that thing that somebody else is telling you is the optimal strategy. And those things might clash with each other. The idea might still be good. What they're trying to get across to you might still be good, but like, allow yourself to figure out that, you know, what works for you. Like we said, what was it? Most of the time, like long term.
Let me pull it back up. Yeah. Pick one thing you can follow pretty consistently most of the time for a long time.
Yeah, which, if I've never thought of it like that. Like, I always thought, like, no, we got to pick the one that's going to save the world and it's going to like change me in 4 days and all this other. It's like, nope, just, you know, pretty good. I can do it for a long, long time. And it's like, man, what a unique way to think about that. So,
and then again, think about what you're optimizing for, because he says that problems arise when we take our life and we compare it to others who are playing with a different scorecard. I think that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, just so good, like, just so much good in here in terms of, you know, like, how do we figure out what to do next with the underlying assumption of do something next. Again, I just think it's well done.
All right. The next chapter 7, is Escape the Doom Loop. Do you know what a doom loop is?
I didn't know what it was until he described what the doom loop was, but I liked it.
So the doom loop, as he describes it here, is we feel less than, and then we set irrational expectations, then we go all in, and then we give up when life happens. But a doom loop in like a video game is it automatically resets. I guess that's like a hyperloop, right? Okay. From like science fiction or something. You have a set period of time, and if you don't figure out what to do in that set period of time, it just jumps you back to the beginning.
No, I had no idea of this.
You get stuck in that loop over and over again. That's what I thought of when he said the doom loop. And then he says to break free with mental escape pods. There's 5 of them that he describes here. Great visual. Let our thoughts think themselves. Forgive ourselves for being human. Notice and name to regain power. Understand what scares you and lean in, and overcome impatience with healthier expectations. The one thing that I thought was pretty brilliant from this section was the advice to treat yourself the way you would treat a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do talk to myself totally different than I would
Yep,
talk
me
to
too.
anybody
Me too.
else.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not as interested in like whether the escape pods I thought were like the most high quality escape pods in the world. I really, this doom loop thing was a spotlight on me. Like I mean, I do this all the time, right? Where, and especially the set irrational expectations, where it's like will write down in my journal like this is the expectation, and it's like, Corey, that's dumb. Like what are you doing? That just doesn't even make any sense. Even on like your best day, you're barely gonna hit that. And this is, I asked the question. It's like, well, okay, are we setting the bar too low, or are we just being realistic? And I actually think it's much more we're being realistic than it is we're setting the bar too low, because you're still trying to get better. Like the goal is still trying to get better. By no means are you trying to do nothing or trying to do worse. He throws a principle out here into what scares us and what makes us lean in. This, what are you scared will happen a month from now? And thinking about it negatively, I don't do that very often. It's like, oh, I'm scared that a month from now, I will still not have written any words in my book, right? You know what I mean? Like whatever it might be. And it's like, why? Why am I scared about that? Okay, now what do I do to overcome that? What do I do to not do that? And it's just a different framing. Like I've never framed anything like that. And I think that would be a valuable thing for me to do in terms of framing the things I'm scared of, or the things I don't want to do or I procrastinate on, and how do I turn those around and flip the script on that? I think that's a cool way to think about that.
Is that an action item? I can't quite tell.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to commit to it. I was like talking about it, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to commit to that as an action item. But it's a cool one.
Okay. Next chapter, unless you got anything else from that one.
No, we'll go.
All right. So chapter 8, how to keep doing the thing. This has been my goal as an independent creator. Keep doing the thing.
Keep doing the thing. Yep.
Yep. Talks in here about 4 components of self-efficacy. There's 10 strategies that he shares here. The one thing that I had written down from this chapter that I wanted to talk about was his epic quest of awesome. When he mentioned that, I instantly recalled where I had heard about him previously, because I remember using that term, like adopting that term for myself, my epic quest of awesome.
Okay.
But then he talks about how it kind of failed, so that makes me a little uncomfortable. But yeah, essentially this is strategies to help you to maintain consistency even when lifes you. So he talks about in here that it all counts. We kind of have this binary state. If I don't go to the gym and complete my full workout and PR in different areas, then it's a bad day. He's like, no, if you showed up and you did anything, take credit for that. There's also the idea here of, instead of asking, do I have time to do the thing, asking how much of the thing do I have time for?
Yep.
I think that could be pretty transformational for some folks. I feel like I've done a pretty good job of just, I don't know, I guess it's rolling with the punches. That sounds so negative, but like if I don't have time to go for a real long run, that's okay. I'll still do a couple of miles. I have learned that lesson, I guess, the hard way over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But I can think back to when, well, if I can't do all of this thing, then I'm just not going to do it. And I feel like this is actually pretty brilliant advice for someone in that situation.
Yeah, a lot of these strategies resonated with me. Like as I was reading through, I was like, yeah, that's a good strategy. Yeah, that's a good strategy. The one that stands out to me the most is the Ulysses Pact. Have you heard of this Ulysses Pact before?
I've heard the story of Ulysses
Me too.
and tying himself to the mast. I guess I'd never heard the framing of the pact before, though.
Yeah, so I think of it like in true fashion, Mike, you're learning about me. It's much more like what the pact that Dumbledore makes with Harry Potter, when he's basically like, you have to drink all of the, or like, you cannot let me not drink all of this liquid. Once I start drinking this liquid, you have to make sure that I drink all this liquid. Anyhow, we digress. But I like this idea. It's basically like, I'm gonna take the possibility of doing the thing I don't want to do off the table. So I'm going to figure out a way that like it just becomes a non-issue. It becomes a non-starter. And can I pre-plan that in to like make that just not even a remote possibility and not even anything that I would consider there. And I think that's where my action item is coming out of this book is like, what are the things, and it's like, it's going to be a multi-phaser because I can't do Ulysses packs for things I don't know that I want to adjust, right? Like I don't want to change. So I got to think about like, okay, what's the one thing that I want to try to make a Ulysses pack for? And then what's the pack that I want to make and how am I going to make that pack? And I just think it's going to be hard to figure out what it is. And then it's going to be hard to stick to it. Like, so I have to get like an accountability circle. I have to get somebody that's going to say they'll hold me to that, or I'm just so staunch about the pact, like that I make it in a way that it's not defeatable. You know, it's kind of one of those not defeatable things. But my overall takeaway here is I think all of these 7 strategies are really, really good and can be very effective at different times.
Nice. You're going to have to word that action.
I'm going to.
I just jotted down Ulysses pact for you.
I'm going to. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So the next chapter is the one where I get my action item from this book. Chapter 9, when life kicks your butt, here's what to do.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of how to consolidate this chapter. Well, I guess just talk through a couple of these points. So life is hard. Bad things happen to good people. Shares a lot of crazy stories again in this chapter. Is this the one where the guy was going to go surfing on his birthday? He got sick, falls off the boat, and then has to tread water for a long time in order to be rescued?
I don't remember the story where they're at, but that sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
He encourages us to give up your anger. Acceptance is the key to surviving the worst situations. Yeah, this is it, because I remember he's in the ocean, he's treading water, and he uses the term, because he talks about all the things that this guy had to endure, curious sharks who are nibbling at his toes, you know, stuff like that. And then he uses the phrase, some jerk birds. And that's it. Like you fill in the blank.
Yep.
That was funny. But my action item is to declare expectation bankruptcy.
Okay.
As I read that out loud, it's kind of like, well, what the heck does that mean? To put more context into this, I think I have put a lot of pressure on myself to do certain things on a regular basis. And I'm the type of person that once I commit to something, I am going to make sure that it gets done.
Okay.
And I probably end up doing things that I should not be doing. One thing that I've been thinking about, just as an example, this has really nothing explicitly to do with the action item, but I published my newsletter this morning. Every week I publish my newsletter. I also publish a blog article version of it, and I record a podcast episode and I embed it at the top of the post. On the one hand, that podcast episode is a way for me to talk through the article as a form of proofreading. That's great. But also, if I don't record that by the morning of, it's real hard for me to do that in the morning because my voice just isn't warmed up yet.
Got it.
And I end up making a bunch of mistakes, and it adds hours to the process. Why do I continue to publish those podcast episodes? Do I really need to do that? The real important thing is that I publish the newsletter every week. So I don't know that there are ways around this. You know, I could get help. I'm actually probably going to be hiring a VA in the near future. I've got a whole bunch of applications that I'm going through currently. So like there are things that I can delegate and somebody else can do this. Certain things that I know I should be doing that I just don't have the time to do. But there are also things that I've created these expectations because I said yes to this thing years ago. And I just continue to do it because of the momentum that's behind that thing. And if I were to declare expectation bankruptcy, to me, that means I wake up, I still own my creator business, but all of the things that I've told myself, you have to publish a YouTube video every week and a half. You have to publish a podcast every 2 weeks. You have to publish a newsletter every Monday. You have to do all of these different things. All that stuff is basically just like dumped out. and then choose what are the things that I actually want
Yep.
to put back into the jar.
Yep.
I feel like it's time to do that.
You're describing my big takeaway from this chapter, which is the zero-based budgeting, right? Where you've
Yep.
budgeted and you're evaluating based on last month's budget, where you're saying these are all the things I've done last month, and I am going to make next month's time budget based on that. And what you just described there is, nope, wipe the slate clean, build it from scratch, and what makes the cut. Wipe the slate clean, build it from scratch, what makes the cut. The other principle that you've described here that I think is really, really fun. Hey, Mike, what's your experiment here? Your experiment is don't put the audio in the newsletter for like 2 or 3 weeks. See if anybody says anything, right? Like do a bunch of people complain? Does anybody even notice? Like and if you don't get that really strong feedback that says, I can't stand this without the audio. You must, dude, let the audio go, right? Like it's okay. Like obviously maybe you can try it again later, but it's not a key feature of that. Like, so I think you can apply multiple steps of what the author here is talking about and apply those right now.
So yeah. And just to like full circle mention, like mentioned the AI stuff with the creativity process. Figuring out what parts are valuable for me as the human and what parts are not. I know I've heard people talk about how they use 11 labs to here's the script from my newsletter, turn it into a podcast episode.
Yep.
I know some people with big audiences who do that. And I don't know if it's like public knowledge, so I'm not going to name any names. But I feel like the ones that I've heard talk about that in the way that seems like maybe it's the right middle ground approach is they admit that, this is something that exists because I'm using this AI tool. If I didn't have the AI tool, this would not exist. So take it or leave it. This is what it is. And people love it. So yeah, I feel like all of the rules are kind of changing right now in terms of, and I got to figure out where those boundaries are, where the lines are. I want to be curious about it though. I don't want to go into it thinking, well, obviously I am the human and I know best. And so I should just draw these lines based off of my experience and my past suffering, which has indicated that this is the thing that I put a lot of work into. So therefore must be valuable to my audience. I feel like you really have no idea. So yeah, expectation bankruptcy, just put it all under the microscope, figure out what is actually valuable, what's worth doing. And then where does my time go in terms of the things that I contribute the most value to?
Yeah, I think that's a smart plan, man. I think you need to do it. I'm going to push you to
all
do
right. Anything else before we go to chapter 10?
No, sir. Let's go.
Okie dokie. So chapter 10 is the last official chapter, I think. How to navigate life with flexible resilience. We make progress by releasing our need for control. Man, this is hard.
Yeah.
He's right, but I struggle with this. Talks about flexible resilience, which is making unoptimized progress in an unpredictable world. I like that idea a lot. Also talks about the approach of wayfinding. Kind of lost me there. Like the people who navigate the Polynesian oceans in a canoe just by looking at the stars. He does say in this section that you don't need to see the whole path, only what's right in front of you. And this is, you mentioned the compass thing earlier. This is where I wrote down, you need a compass, not a blueprint. That's something that I say in the life theme stuff all the time. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to know what the next step is. He also says, though, one other thing I really liked here is that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You only can connect the dots looking backward.
I like that a lot.
Me too. I feel like that's really profound because when you're connecting the dots, you're really trying to make sense of the things that have happened and you're painting a narrative about what's possible based on your experiences. I don't want to do that, but I do it all the time.
We've talked about this before where you've described it as the video game map, to where like as you move in the direction, it reveals a little bit more of the map. So most of the map is blacked out, and then as you move, he describes a quote here: writing a novel is like driving a car at night. You don't see your destination or everything you pass along the way. You just see 1 or 2 feet ahead of you. And it's like that thinking is, again, it's just different thinking than I normally do. Like I try to plan out so far, and then get frustrated when something happens, when life lifes you, and when like these things constrain what you're able to do. And then like I enter that doom loop of, like, I feel cruddy about it. So like it just makes it worse. And it's like, no, what if you only tried to plan a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further? And we do this all the time. Like I think about it when I think about teaching design or doing design projects. We call this, agile design or like sprints, where we're doing these small recursive sprints where we're not trying to plan out so far. And it's like, why don't I do this more? Why does my brain not just naturally default to this style of thinking? So I don't know. I'm not going to commit to an action item on this one, but man, I think I'd be better off if I did it this way, where I only tried to look so far and then I reassessed and I reassessed. And my short-term version is the semester. Like, what do I want to get done by the end of the semester? Or what do I think I can accomplish by the end of the semester? And then reevaluate. And then what do I think next semester? And then summer. And then semester, summer. Like, that's just the natural ebb and flow of my life. So I think that's the natural process for me.
And for me, it's the personal retreats every quarter.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the thing, is the regular feedback loops, I feel. That's the approach. You need to make progress for a little bit, sprint, and then take a step back, get a different perspective, look at what happened and readjust, repair if needed, try again.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I didn't realize that the personal retreat stuff and a lot of the productivity stuff that I talk about, how neatly it fits into the topic of this book. I feel like looking at it, and at the beginning, it feels like, oh, look here's somebody who has failed a lot, sharing vulnerably about their experience to help folks who are ready to give up. And the more I go through this book, the more I feel like he's talking to me.
Yeah, I told you, spotlight, right? Like, didn't I tell you at the beginning? I was like, there were so many times in this book where it was like spotlight, spotlight, spotlight. We would be remiss, Mike. We would be remiss. We have to talk about this. He threw out the Bob Ross quote: "There are no mistakes, only happy accidents." And It's like, yes, Bob Ross, you had it. You nailed it a long, long time ago. Where are the happy accidents in our life, and how do we respond to those? Sorry, I had to get the Bob Ross.
Happy little trees.
Happy little trees. Oh man.
All right. So the next chapter is the conclusion. This is not the last section of the book.
Nope.
But it is essentially a conclusion to the book. It's pretty short. I think the epilogue is longer, which is kind of weird. Essentially, the conclusion is, how can I have a pretty good day today? That's the question that we should be asking. Make a pact and see what happens. And then an encouragement that we have all the tools and the mindsets that we need in order to try again. Anything else you want to call out from this conclusion?
I think he does a good job, like, hitting the highlights here. He's got a section here where he says win or learn, which he's talked about before, accept the happy accidents, find a way to get good. Failures are going to pile up, and we got to figure out how we rebound from that. And I think, like, he did a good job, telling us what he told us earlier and through the rest of the book. So I didn't have any issues with the conclusion at all. I thought it was good.
It is a good conclusion, but it's not the end. So
Nope.
The chapter after that is the epilogue, and it really is another chapter.
This one caught me in like a weird way. And even the title of it, with a little help from my friends, like, I still can't tell you I understand the title of this epilogue.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things I jotted down at the beginning of this is that most success is out of our hands. And I don't know how you feel about that. I've wrestled with this, but I've actually talked about this in quite a few of my mastermind groups, and even the people who are really, really successful would tell you, yeah, I just got lucky.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think there is an element of that, but also I feel like if you continue to show up, you exponentially increase your chances of getting lucky. So you do need to be in the right place at the right time. But if you go from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm, I feel like it's sort of inevitable that you'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. There's the idea of wabi-sabi here, which is the Japanese art of like painting the cracks in the china and stuff like that. So you embrace the imperfect, basically. He has a phrase which I really liked. It's all for fun and it will all be okay. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not a weakness. And then the big one, the way he ends the book essentially is to deal with tomorrow. Great advice and a great way to end the book, I feel.
Yeah, I again, this kind of stands on its own. It's kind of this little island, like the epilogue is a little island, which I guess that's what the point of an epilogue is. Like sometimes it connects more than others. I didn't think this one connected very much at all. And it may be what I'm gonna call the weakest section of the book for me. Like it just, I get what he's pointing, but it's almost like an afterthought. Like that's what he was thinking. He was like, and oh, by the way, I want to tell you all this other stuff too. And it wasn't a ton of stuff, but it's like here's this other stuff too. So my biggest takeaway here, like my biggest insight here, was the one meeting, that basically be in the moment. Like when you're meeting with somebody, like slow down, be present, enjoy that, because I don't do that. Like I don't do that enough in there. So that's why it resonated with me more, is I'm thinking about what's next and where are we going and what's the goal. And we've heard other people talk about this, or we've read other people talk about this as like transactional interactions, not like meaningful interactions. And it's like, just my life would be better, and I think my relationships would be better if they were more meaningful interactions. What are we doing? We're just living in the same moment together right now and just enjoying it. We're not trying to get something out of this. So that was my biggest takeaway from the epilogue.
Yeah, I get that. I actually think the epilogue is a pretty important point, and it's placed pretty great, I think, in terms of the flow of the whole book. You don't really want to talk about others' roles in your failure until you get to the point where you're willing to own it. And I feel like you probably have to work through the whole book in order to feel okay with that. But then, like, this is a whole nother book, essentially, this topic of the importance of relationships and the communities that you're a part of and things like that. I don't want him to add a whole nother part to the book. The only other option I see with this is this becomes like part 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have liked that approach either. But I do think there's a lot of value in this, and it does feel a little bit weird tacked on to the end, like you said. Yeah. But I also feel like this is a pretty good palate cleanser. This is the orange sherbet at the end of the meal. But it's good. It's good stuff. It's not a throwaway, here's a summary from chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, all in a 2-page thing, and I'm going to tell you what I already told you just to make sure that it sticks. Could have gone in a million different directions, could have left this out entirely. I think it's a better book because it's there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you I felt that strongly about it either way, but if it wouldn't have been there, I don't think I'd have noticed. I don't think I'd have been like, oh, sure. Shucks, we were just missing that one last little thing. That's just, yeah. So cool. Good take.
I can see that. Okay. Action items. I've got one, which is, let me see how I wrote this down. Declare expectation bankruptcy. Yeah. So I should probably add a little bit more to the text for that, but reconsider all the things that I am currently committed to and whether I am going to continue doing them and whether I am the right person to do them.
Yep,
I'll workshop that, but you've also got one here. What's yours?
Yeah, so mine is think about the Ulysses Pact, and it's basically, what do I not want to do and how do I set it up so I can't do that thing? And I'm just picking one thing. I don't want to go crazy, like just one thing. Well, what's the thing I don't want to do? And then how do I set it up to not be able to do that?
All right. Okay, style and rating. Man, here we go. I struggle with what to rate this. Because at the beginning of this, I felt like this is an entertaining read with some good stuff in it, but it's really not for me. I went through some of this stuff already. I see where he's going with some of this stuff. I know the resources that he's pointing to or alluding to, and I've already got a different understanding of some of the stuff that he's talking about. So thanks, Steve. I know that already. And then when we get into part 2, it's kind of like more and more, okay, actually, you know more about this than I thought you did. It's kind of like that friend who is real goofy, and then you find out that they're real smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh, I should have been listening to you all along.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that just by the nature of how he writes and the jokes that he tells, there are people like past Mike maybe at the beginning of this book who are going to dismiss maybe some of the things that he is saying in the book. He mentions, just as an example, there's a section in there where he's like, I would have mentioned a Lord of the Rings example here, but my editor told me I've already used them all up. And then later on, he uses one. He's like, okay, I actually managed to squeeze one more out of him or something like that. That's the style. I mean, I think you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it.
Yep.
I think there's probably a good portion of the bookworm audience who is just not gonna connect with this one. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't though. That's the thing that I'm really struggling with this particular book is like, do I think this is one of the best books that I have ever read? I don't. But also it's a very brave way to tackle a topic that nobody else talks about.
Mm-hmm.
The world would be better if there were more Steve Kambs in it writing books like this.
Yep. I agree completely.
So I feel like maybe that's a little bit of my hesitation, is just it's so different. I don't really have a frame of reference for this type of book. I don't know what to do with this. It doesn't fit neatly into my checklist of what is a 5-star book. Yep. I mean, there's 2 parts and an extra chapter that doesn't fit. Like, I've never seen that. There's an epilogue after a conclusion that has more than the conclusion. I've never seen that. But I also think that I really, really enjoyed this one. I picked it because I met Steve at Craft and Commerce, and he seemed like a cool guy. I wanted to get some attention on his book, and I thought it would be good based on what I heard other people talking about it, but I didn't expect it to be a 5-star book, honestly. I thought it would just be an entertaining read because Steve seems like a cool guy. So I don't feel, I'll say this explicitly right now, I don't feel an expectation because I met Steve to give it 5 stars. But I feel like this message is so important, and he does such a good job communicating it in a way that anybody can relate to it, I feel, that I have to. I think this is a 5-star book, and I think everybody should read it.
Yep. So you hit the nail on the head at the very, very end of your review. The reason why I think this is a 5-star book is because I would have zero hesitation recommending this to anybody who is in that mode where they're thinking about a failure, they're thinking about picking themselves back up, they're thinking about trying again, they're thinking about what are strategies to keep going in light of difficult times. Like, when I think about all that stuff, it's an accessible book, it's an easy read, it's got a lot of like core principles that I think are outstanding. The stories aren't bad. Like, I'm not one to like overly resonate with stories in any book. Like, I mean, you've known that, but you know that by now. So it's like, they're not bad. Like, I think they connect with what we're trying to do in communicating the idea. I think the extra little key insights at the end of the chapters just drive home the efficacy of the book in terms of that. My biggest like struggle with the book is the epilogue just kind of feels like it sits a little bit over here on an island, which is a really, really silly like complaint. You know, like, it's not even a complaint. Like, complaint's too strong of a word. Like, there's no way I'd knock it down just for that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to do that. No, I think he wrote a great book. I think it's a message that, whether, even if you aren't gonna get a lot of this personally, there's somebody in your life that will. Like, there's somebody that you'd be like, oh, so and so, if they read this book, it would mean a lot to them, and it would give them a couple strategies to try. You know, like, you think about the escape pods, you think about the strategies. He blends the high level principle with like effective strategies really, really well, I think, in the 2 parts of the book, to where if you wanted to, you could just be like, hey, just read chapters 2 through 5. And then if you're like, okay, now read chapters 6 through 10, right? Like, so I'm at different phases of this. I just think it's a really effective book. And I think it's like, it's kind of an easy 5-star for me. Like I didn't come into it with any, not knowing anything. This is an easy 5-star for me. And I think he deserves a 5-star on this.
I like what you said at the end there. This is a really effective book.
Yeah.
I feel like he knocked it out of the park for what he was trying to do with this one. It's definitely better for going through the 20 different revisions that it had to go through. So if you're listening, great job, Steve.
Yeah, and I think him struggling so much to try to figure out the structure of it, I think he landed on a good structure. Like, is it the best structure? I have no idea. Like, I'd have to think about that a lot harder. But he landed on a good, effective structure. So I'm in.
It's quirky, but so is he. All right, let's put How to Try Again on the shelf. What's next, Cory?
All right, so the next book we have is called Inside the Box by David Epstein. Now, I can't remember, Mike, did you all read Range before I got here, or have you not?
I read Range. I can't remember if it was bookworm or not, but it is a phenomenal book.
Okay, so
I love it.
in Kamb actually acknowledges and references Range, David Epstein's book Range in his book. But basically what we're going to look at is we're going to look at putting constraints on things and narrowing down options. And he's going to tell us some stories from different people in different organizations that embraced constraints to kind of transform the way they did things or transform the world or think about things. I am a big fan of constraints in terms of using them appropriately. I think we can over-constrain things. I think we can under-constrain things. I think if we hit constraints well, it actually improves our ability to be creative. It improves our ability to solve problems well. It improves our ability to do different things. So I'm very intrigued to see how he helps us think about like this idea of setting appropriate constraints or appropriate boundaries on a problem space or on a design space and where we go from there. So I'm excited to read this one. So David Epstein, Inside the Box is what it's called. How about you, Mike? What's after that?
I have a slide in my presentation for Max Talk about embracing constraints.
Nice.
So I think I'll like this one.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So after that, we've got a way to recommend a book, by the way. Bookworm.fm/recommend, I believe. The link will be in the show notes. But we've got quite a few recommendations from folks. And so I was going through that list, and there was a book that I own, but I have not read yet, and I think it is time. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. There is a blurb on the front of this book from James Clear. It says, "Bursting with ideas, everyone should own a copy." So I honestly don't know what this book is really going to be about. It says timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness. I've read a Morgan Housel book before. I think we covered one for Bookworm.
It was just before I got there. So just before I started on the show.
I can't even remember the name of that book. Is one of the more recent ones. He's got another one out more recently on the art of spending money, which is sort of a second iteration of, or a follow-up to the Psychology of Money. So I feel like this is the one that gets thrown out all the time. It's sold like something like 10 million copies. So this is the definitive work, if you will. We should definitely, I feel like, have this one in the catalog. So we're going to read this one, and thank you to listener Paul for recommending this. All right. You got any Gap books?
No. I'm just reading Bookworm books. I'm not reading Gap books. No. Not
okay.
Right.
Well, I do have one that I'm going to bring with me to Maxlock as we record this. And it is actually inspired by you. You told me about Bandersnatch back in the day.
I did.
Yes. So I have it here on my desk. I'm going to bring it with, and I'm hopefully going to start reading this when I need my introvert breaks at Maxstock.
And I'm going to ask you about it and wonder if it's worth me reading, and you might save me from reading it. So yeah, Bandersnatch.
The idea behind this one, by the way, it's on the creative process of C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, and the Inklings, which was their creative mastermind group, where they gave each other feedback on their writing and stuff like that, which I think is a pretty awesome topic. So yeah, we're going to give it a shot. All right. I guess that does it for another episode of Bookworm. Appreciate everybody listening and supporting the show. If you want to join the pro show, we would love to have you. It's $7 a month. It helps us keep the lights on here at Bookworm. You get access to a longer ad-free pro show, so there's an extra segment there. Today we talked about World Cup in soccer. There's a bootleg that gets released right after the recording, so that gets you access to the episodes usually 1 to 2 weeks early. I've got a reading masterclass that I did. It's a 2.5-hour workshop on how to extract more value from the books that you read. That normally sells for $49 on its own, so you get access to that as well. So like I said, $7 a month, and if you want to support us, we would love to have you join us. Bookworm.fm/pro.
If you're reading along with us, pick up Inside the Box by David Epstein, and we'll talk to you next time.